Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the It's About Us podcast. This is week 8, and I am Richard Zane, and I am once again joined by my friend Mitch Mason. He is alive. He made it through his test last week, and he is back.
Good to be back.
Yes, it is. That's why I can have somebody to play off of. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I did record a show last week.
I listened to it.
It's
what,
much
eight
easier.
minutes? Yeah.
It's much easier to play off somebody.
Sure.
We'll go ahead and, since you weren't here last week, we'll go ahead and get your take on the Tennessee Thriller. 5.5 hours from start to finish 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that?
It was an impressive win for the Aggies. I was definitely nervous through the majority of it. It was kind of one of those things where it was like, I love Aggie football, I hate Aggie football. I love Aggie football, I hate Aggie football. But the defense
You're
showed.
a first generation Aggie. You'll get used to that.
I am. Yeah, I'm not. I don't have the battered Aggie syndrome quite yet. But
just yet.
I think
just
I can.
wait till after.
I
this
can.
week.
Yeah, I can feel it setting in a little bit. But yeah, no, I thought the defense looked good in the first half, looked bad in the second half, but they did find a way to get the stop to win the ball game. So, good sign for the Aggies that we're not the same team from past years that when stuff has gone wrong, we just kind of roll over and die. I really like this team's ability to stand up to the challenge and pull out a clutch victory, first with UCLA and now with Tennessee, and hopefully we can do something against Bama. We'll see.
I feel it. Yeah, I liked how you touched on the defense, though, for sure. The defense has been this team's strength. Mm-hmm. It's been the difference between this team and many teams in the past that have been really good at A&M. You look at Johnny Manziel's time at A&M or in 2012 and 2013 where we were in the top 10 mm-hmm. and a very good ball team. What set us apart from everybody else was we didn't have a defense.
Right.
And now we do. And we have a consistent offense. We don't have a great offense anymore. We have a pretty good defense, and we can hang in with just about anyone, and we're going to see that put to the test this week.
Yeah.
Big thing is, at Tennessee, Myles Garrett played limited snaps. You can't question the man's heart, though.
No, you can't.
I keep watching that video of the interception over and over, and he's hurt. He is noticeably limping throughout the game. He was not 100%, not even close.
Right.
And he still put it all together on that last play and really caused the interception by bull rushing his lineman and just throwing off Joshua Dobbs' timing and made him step back, and Armani Watts came up and clinched it. Yeah,
no, the play that Myles Garrett gave us at 65% is why he will be the eventual, I think, number one draft pick.
I think he should be drafted. Yeah. Of course, we're biased, but I think he's the best player in college football.
It's pretty solid.
We'll go ahead and move into recapping last week, week 7 of the college football world. Your Ags were on a bye.
The bye week.
We won the bye week. Thank God we got by BYU. It was a tough one.
Yeah.
But, I used that to study. I spent my Saturday at the library instead of watching football and getting ready for A&M games.
That's unfortunate.
Hey, it happens. You had your test last week.
I did.
Mine this week.
No, exactly.
So, elsewhere in the college football world, Clemson narrowly escaped NC State last week, 24-17 in overtime.
Make a field goal. Just make a field goal.
NC State's a field goal away from winning that game. Clemson did drop from 3 to 4. Yeah. NC State looked good, and they could definitely give Louisville fits this week. Mm-hmm. We'll touch on that in a little bit. This really good Tennessee Volunteers that the Aggies played on week 6, had trouble with, but eventually got by them. They went into, they didn't go into Tuscaloosa. They met in Knoxville with the Crimson Tide, and we're thinking, oh yeah, Tennessee's going to do what they usually do and come back and give Alabama fits. Yeah, no. 49-10, nothing to touch on other than Alabama's the best team in the country, and I'm really scared.
Yeah, I think even though Tennessee got absolutely shellacked, I think they did show a few weaknesses in Bama, but we'll touch on that a little bit later.
Jalen Hurts ran for over 100 yards. The dual-threat true freshman quarterback is going to be a big key to this week's game.
Yeah.
UNC, the Tar Heels, Michael Jordan's alma mater, has now beat a top 10 Florida State team and a top 16 Miami team but they're still 5-2 on the year. They're still a bunch of scrubs.
First time in program history that they've beaten Florida State and Miami in the same year. An impressive win for the Tar Heels.
If they meet Florida in a bowl game, watch out. They are going to run the Sunshine State. Arkansas and Ole Miss did battle last week in an exciting one. Came down to the end.
Yeah.
Number 12, Ole Miss did get knocked off. They fell big time in the polls.
Yep.
That was Arkansas's third straight win against the Rebels. Can you believe that?
I mean, no.
3 in a row.
This Arkansas team has been the epitome of inconsistency the last few years, but give them credit. They rose up. They played really, really well. Pressured Chad Kelly, made him make some bad mistakes throughout the game. Great win for the Razorbacks.
Do you know why I know that's the third straight win?
Why?
One of my friends in a fraternity at Ole Miss forced one of his pledges to get a tattoo on his rear end that says three-peat.
Oh, no.
The only reason I know that.
Ouch.
Elsewhere in the SEC, Mississippi State continues to be an embarrassment. Although Dak Prescott does not continue to be an embarrassment.
No, he does not. Let's go Cowboys, man.
They lost to BYU last week, but BYU ended up losing what they really desired, and that was entry to the Big 12. UH and Cincinnati also not getting in. But who really cares?
Nobody cares about the Big 12.
The Big 12's a dumpster fire, and it's going downhill fast.
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt! Let's talk about the Commodores. Anchor down.
I mean, how about that upset? That was impressive.
Georgia's first loss on homecoming since 2006. Georgia, I think they want Mark Richt back. Consistent 9-4 looks good.
Yeah. I mean, that's a bad loss for Georgia. I know they're young, but it's Vanderbilt. You gotta win that homecoming game. Georgia just didn't do enough when it came down to the offensive side of the ball. Jacob Eason's been inconsistent, and I mean he is a true freshman. But I think Kirby Smart is wondering why he took Grayson Lambert out so soon back in the first week of the season.
Last thing on my recap list is this. Texas is back. They scored on Iowa State for the first time since 2014 and pulled the upset.
Yeah.
Wink, wink,
Yeah.
nudge, nudge. It wasn't an upset. Texas is just terrible. They ended up winning the game 27-6.
That first half was embarrassing for the Longhorns. I mean, the fact that Iowa State was even in the neighborhood of winning that game at the end of the first half is just showing you how weak Texas is. I mean, they only put up 27 on a team that's 1-5. I think I facetiously put on Twitter that every Texas fan after that game is saying, you know what, they were a good 1-5 team. I mean, come on. People are talking about Texas like...
The defense is back, bro. They only allowed 6 points.
The
defense is back.
But when they're averaging 450 yards a game, it's just bad. You can't average that on the defensive side of the ball. Come on, Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie's going to be looking for a job. I saw on Twitter right before I came over, if Charlie Strong were to become available at the end of this year, like
a lot of people think.
Everybody expects him to be.
Yep.
He would be at the top or near the top of LSU's coaching search.
Oh, don't do that. LSU, you just lost your mascot. You don't want to lose your entire football program, too.
Rest in peace to Mike the Tiger.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move into next week. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
The SEC, man, the best conference in college football, is giving you the only 3 games you should care about this week. 3 matchups between ranked teams.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, 2 of the 3 matchups are teams ranked between 17 and 25. One of them is the top 10 matchup. That's our game.
But it's still the SEC. It's still the SEC gauntlet.
That's true. It is. We're showing why the SEC is better than the Big 12.
Yeah.
And the ACC.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Pac-12. The Big 10's pretty good this year. I'll give them credit.
They're all right.
They're really good.
Ohio State plays Penn State. They'll blow them out. Still not a challenge.
Michigan, Ohio State, Nebraska, Wisconsin. They've got 4 out of the top 10 teams.
Yes.
We'll go ahead and touch on number 17, Arkansas. The Piggies are going to the loveliest little village on the plains of Alabama. They will play the number 21 ranked Fighting Gus Malzahn's, the Auburn Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn is a 9.5-point favorite. This is a 5 o'clock kick on ESPN. What do you think?
I don't totally understand why Auburn's such a heavy favorite. They've sort of found their offense just a little bit, but the way Arkansas dominated the football last week against Ole Miss, albeit at home, give me the Razorbacks on this one. I think they've got the tenacity, and they just play a tougher brand of football than Auburn. Auburn's got a great defense, but I think Arkansas has a good enough defense to stop a middle-of-the-road Auburn offense, and then Austin Allen has been solid all year long. I think he throws all over Auburn this week.
I like Austin Allen a lot. The kid's got heart that matches, like we touched on, Myles Garrett. Like, he's got probably one of the biggest hearts. He just leaves it all on the field. Mm-hmm. He gets beat up week in and week out, but it doesn't matter when there's still time on the clock. He's going to go all out for you. Mm-hmm. My X factor in this game is Austin Allen and also his counterpart, Sean White. We know from the game against A&M, Auburn, Sean White was not very good.
Didn't even look like an athlete.
Had a lot of Tigers calling for John Franklin III to be played. Mm-hmm. But as the season's gone on, he's gotten much, much better. Yeah. And he's the reason why Auburn has come from losing 2 out of their first 3 games to being ranked in the top 25. Yeah. It took them 4 overtimes to beat Auburn last year for the Pigs. I think they get the win this year. But even if they don't, and I think it does come down to Austin Allen at the end of the game, even if Auburn does win the game, I don't think they come close to beating the spread.
Yeah, no, not at all.
We'll go to the other top 25 matchup. Number 23, Ole Miss, down 11 spots in the polls last week after they lost to Arkansas. It's a pretty big of a drop. I think it's a little too much. They will travel to Death Valley and play. They will play the number 25 ranked LSU Tigers, 8 o'clock on ESPN. LSU's a 6-point favorite. Leonard Fournette is back this week.
Yeah, he is. I think Fournette might be a little bit rusty this week against the Rebels. You know, Ed Orgeron had him ready to go for his first game.
Well, who did they play, though?
Well, did they play Mississippi State? Who was it? No, it was... check on that real quick.
It was not. It wasn't. They didn't play Florida. It wasn't Mississippi State.
Regardless, I do remember.
It wasn't a good game.
It wasn't a good game, but I do remember talking about how difficult it was going to be for LSU to care about that game. Their season's over at this point. They're just playing for pride, quote unquote. But at the same time, they did come in. It was Missouri.
Southern Miss.
Was it Southern Miss? I thought it was Missouri.
Southern Miss, yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so I mean, LSU.
Well, he's won 2 games by a big margin. He played Mizzou and Southern Miss.
Yeah, they shut out Missouri. That was the other thing. Is Drew Lock?
They crushed them.
Appeared to only look good in September. Anyway, regardless, I think LSU at home.
He's a young quarterback. Don't make fun of Drew Lock.
I can't tell if I like the Tigers enough to pick them or if I just feel sorry for them, but. Give me LSU over the Rebels. I think the Rebels, that's their 3rd loss on the season. Their season's over, too. They're not really playing for anything. I think Chad Kelly's a hothead. He's definitely got his pride hurt. He might be irrational this week throwing interceptions, so give me the Tigers.
Oh, Chad Kelly just got demolished on Twitter this week. Did you see that? Chad Kelly decided to slide into the DMs of a adult film star.
Oh.
And
no, I didn't see that.
It didn't work well for him, and she took screenshots and tweeted at Ole Miss and was like, come get your man.
Oops.
Well, Chad, this is why you make me root for LSU, and that hurts as an Aggie.
Oh, no.
LSU's going to win this game. Leonard Fournette's going to be the old Leonard Fournette. Moving on.
Yeah, all right. Glad to move on.
Chad Kelly, you weirdo. Stay away from the Aggie girls when you come to town, please.
Seriously.
Moving into the top 10. Really only one good game other than A&M, Alabama this week. And I think that's Louisville, NC State. NC State's 4-2.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that NC State's going to be a good game. But NC State did beat Notre Dame. Granted, it was...
Notre Dame.
It was Notre Dame in a hurricane.
Yeah.
And an actual hurricane, and then they were within a field goal. They were a missed field goal away from beating the number 3 team in the country last week.
Yep.
NC State's dangerous, and Lamar Jackson didn't play well last week. Only 2 touchdowns. He's much like Christian McCaffrey, McCaffrey. Sorry, I can't speak today. It's been a long week.
McCaffrey.
He's like Christian McCaffrey. If you keep him out of the end zone, then Louisville's going to struggle.
Yeah.
So I think Louisville's going to win this game, but it has the potential to be an upset.
Yeah, I think NC State's dangerous. They looked really, really good at holding Clemson's offense back, but I think the thing that really hurt them was just the ability to execute in clutch moments. I mean, granted, it's hard to talk about missing a field goal when, the Aggies' field goal kicker missed one that would have beaten
We won the game.
Tennessee. We did win the game. Anyway.
They lost the game. We won our game. That's all that matters. We're 6-0. They're not. They're 4-2.
I do think NC State's dangerous. I think they've got a solid defense. They've got a couple draft picks on that defensive side of the ball. But, yeah, I think Louisville is going to be too much. Lamar Jackson bounces back this week. Give me Louisville.
Yeah. Elsewhere in the top 10, Wisconsin is at Iowa. Iowa has rebounded from their first week loss against North Dakota State.
Mm-hmm.
They're 5-2, but I think Wisconsin's the best 5-2 team in the country.
Yeah,
they're the best 2-loss team in the country. That's
good
job. Thumbs up, guys.
If they could get an offense there in Camp Randall, I think they'd be fine. But Alex Hornibrook just doesn't have the ability to throw the ball deep downfield. The interceptions that he threw against Ohio State last week, he just kind of floated them to the defenders. It just wasn't a great throw either time. So I think if Wisconsin could figure out how to move the ball through the air a little bit more, they would be a really solid elite team. But as it stands right now, they can run the ball and they can play good defense. And I think for this week, that's enough to beat Iowa on the road.
Number 9, Baylor is off. Number 8, Nebraska might as well be off. They're at home against Purdue.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those two teams for a minute. How in the world are they in the top 10? Well, I guess, if you're undefeated, you automatically... Why not just put up Western Michigan up here?
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Put Baylor and Nebraska.
Well, you and I were talking before the show a little bit, and, I mean, the obvious thing that stands out is neither team has really played anybody. I think Baylor is still getting a little bit of a boost from their reputation under Art Briles. It's largely the same football team
now, isn't it?
Well, it's largely the same football team, sans Briles, but Nebraska has looked solid. They've put together games that they needed to against weak opponents. Baylor can't necessarily say that.
They only scored 49.
Yeah, well...
Only.
They almost losing to Iowa State. They were behind for most of that game. I think actually the touchdown that they took the lead on was their first lead of the ball game. So, I mean, Baylor's struggled, but they're undefeated, so I think you have to rank them up there, but don't expect to see them there once the end of the season comes.
Nebraska does play Wisconsin next week. We're about to find out if they're good, if they deserve to be up here.
Yeah.
Washington's at Oregon State. Nothing to touch on there. They're a 36.5-point favorite. They do play Utah next week in what is possibly their last real test until a Pac-12 championship game or even a conference or a national semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan's at Illinois, sorry. Michigan is a 35.5-point favorite on homecoming. Big thing for the Fightin' Jim Harbaughs is to just stay healthy and prep next week for Michigan State. I know Michigan State's 2-4, but it's a rivalry game. Anything could happen.
Man.
Also, Ohio State is at Penn State, and really what to watch for is not the game itself. It's to see how many points Ohio State puts on the Nittany Lions. What we noticed a couple weeks ago when Michigan played Rutgers, when they put 78 up on them, is we've kind of got ourselves a little Cold War going on between the Buckeyes and the Wolverines, and we're going to see if Ohio State returns the serve.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan beat Penn State by 39 points a couple weeks ago. We're going to see if Ohio State can outdo them. All of this is just leading up to the game on November 26th.
Yep.
Nothing to talk about there, so let's go ahead and get to the big one.
All right.
Your number 6 Fightin' Texas Aggies are going to travel to Tuscaloosa, T-Town, Denny Bryant Stadium to face the best team in the country, the number 1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. We are on icy white alert this week. Trevor Knight spent his bye week in Norman.
He did.
Just so it makes Tuscaloosa look all right.
Yeah.
Because they're both average. at best. We'll go ahead and get to the game breakdown. What do you think?
Oh, man. Bama's obviously the best team in the country. When you evaluate the top 10, the top 5 teams, I think Bama is in a class of their own. They're unquestioningly the best team in the country. I think the thing that the Aggies have to do this week, and that something that I noticed last week, is they have to constantly put pressure on Jalen Hurts, the freshman quarterback for Bama. The thing about him is he doesn't have a very strong, accurate arm. He's kind of like Trevor Knight, where he misses wide open throws. In fact, I noticed a couple of throws last week against Tennessee where he was just trying to dump it out into the flat, and he would one-hop his tight end with nobody around. So Hurts isn't the best passer. What he does do is hurt teams with his legs. But the interesting thing to note about that is when pressure is applied to Hurts, he doesn't scramble nearly as much as you think he does. He actually does a majority of his running on designed run plays. And so I think if the Aggies can contain him with our defensive ends in Myles Garrett and Deshaun Hall, we actually stand a chance at potentially limiting his running attack and making him throw the ball downfield, which I think our secondary might be up to the task with.
I think you're exactly right. Jalen Hurts is the key to the game. Mm-hmm. The dual threat that he gives the Aggie defense is just, that's we need to make him one-dimensional.
Yeah,
we need to stop the run game. Mm-hmm. Deshaun Hall and Myles Garrett are going to be up at the task. The rest of that defensive line is outstanding and probably the best. We've got the best bookends in the country. Mm-hmm. Probably have the best defensive line in the country.
Yeah.
A&M's, it's really a perfect storm for the Aggies this year. There's no doubt that Alabama is the best team in the country, and I think if you play this game, best of 7, best of 5, whatever, it probably doesn't go the full length, and Alabama beats A&M almost every time.
Yeah.
But it's a perfect storm. Alabama's coming in after a game against Tennessee. I mean, they didn't have to use all their people, obviously, since Tennessee's absolutely terrible. A&M's coming off a bye week. They're healthy. Myles Garrett's going to be back. Yeah. I haven't seen anything about Keith Ford, but I assume Keith Ford's going to be back. Mm-hmm. Travion Williams is recharged and ready to go.
Yeah.
And Speedy Noyle, Ricky Seals-Jones, everybody's 100% for A&M. I mean, as far as I've heard.
Yeah.
Our receiving core matches up with their smaller secondary very well.
Yeah.
Where we can offer we have options for Trevor Knight to go deep and burn their secondary. Mm-hmm. Trevor Knight can also run. He's got the dual threat capabilities as well. We fit their weaknesses very well. Mm-hmm. Obviously they are the stronger team, so our weaknesses are more than their weaknesses.
Right.
In sheer numbers, but. Mm-hmm. We fit their weaknesses well, and we can attack them. And I assume, we've got oh man, my head's just spinning. I think the Aggies are going to win this week.
All right.
So bad. I mean, it's not going to be bad. It's not going to be huge by any stretch of the imagination. But you look, the last time A&M beat Alabama in 2012, Johnny Manziel. We talked about it earlier. Didn't have a defense and just relied on offense. Our coaching and our talent is as good as it's ever been.
Right.
I think this is the best A&M team I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In my 19 years.
Definitely.
I just think, man, it's going to be a good team. It's going to be a good game, and I think that the line's 18.5 this.
Yeah, that's definitely disrespectful. And I mean, the Aggies have been talking about that in the media, how they're using that to fuel them. They're not
bulletin board material.
Yeah, no, they're not. Offended, quote unquote. They're not taking it personally. They're just using it to fuel them. I do think what's really interesting to watch for the Aggies this week is when they get down, and I do believe they will trail at some point in this game, maybe by 2 touchdowns, maybe more than, hopefully not.
Nope. Aggies by 90.
But I would like to see, even if the Aggies do trail, and say they lose by 3 scores, what I'd like to see from them is the heart and the fight to continue to play, to continue to give their best, because even if we lose this game, we only have 1 loss. And personally, I think the Aggies have the talent and the schedule to run the gauntlet. That means that if we do lose this game will be used as a measuring stick to measure us against the other teams in the country. Say we're number 5, this game will be used to determine whether or not we have a shot at the playoff. And so, regardless of whether we win or lose, this game has to be close. We have to give our best.
I agree with
We
that.
can't turn the ball over.
I think if A&M doesn't turn the ball over, I think they're going to win the game.
Same.
I think we need to force some turnovers. Obviously Tennessee gifted us the game 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
If we can force Jalen Hurts to give us the ball, I think A&M's going to win this game. I'm just excited. Yeah. I'm so excited. This is the best A&M team I've ever seen.
It's going to be good. I will be glued to my TV on Saturday.
And as you said, our schedule after this game is really not that difficult. Ole Miss is not that good. LSU's not that good. Mississippi State's terrible.
Yeah.
UTSA is not very good, and we have New Mexico State next week. It's very favorable.
Don't get me wrong. There's still danger in the schedule, especially with the SEC teams, because this is the SEC, and anybody can beat anybody. We just saw that with Vanderbilt and Georgia. But at the same time, I think this A&M team, like you said, is one of the best that we've seen in years. And I'd like to think that even if we lose this game, they'll bounce back next week. They'd beat up on New Mexico State and then go into the rest of the SEC play raring to go, trying to get into that playoff with one loss. Because if you listen to the national experts on ESPN, on Fox Sports, what have you, they think that there could possibly be a 2-loss team in the playoff. The way that all these schedules shape up, the way teams are beating up on each other, they think it's a possibility. So I think if the Aggies are in there with one loss to the best team in the country, I think that speaks volumes about our program.
This game definitely has conference championship implications and national championship implications.
Definitely.
Whoever wins this game is going to be in the top 4 next week.
Oh yeah.
Whoever wins this game is probably going to represent the SEC West in Atlanta in December, and it's just so many national storylines and huge storylines this week.
Yeah.
The Aggies really have a chance to take advantage and put everybody who said A&M would never compete in the SEC to shame this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I'm so excited. I'm excited to look at that T-SIP you told me 4 years ago, that we would never do anything. I'd be like, gotcha.
Yeah.
Look at that sooner and be like, ha-ha. But, I think it'll be a good football game, and that's really all we can hope for. And I think
just as long as we don't beat ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, it's an exciting time to be an Ag. That's for sure.
It is a very exciting time to be an Ag.
With that said, we've talked about the college football playoff a little bit. We'll go ahead and give you our top 4 as we need to start wrapping this thing up.
Yep.
Personally, my top 4, as Alabama's number 1, obviously. Their consensus number 1. I'm surprised they're not unanimous in the
I don't understand that at all.
They're the best team in the country, without a doubt. Number 2, I think Ohio State, followed by Michigan at 3, and number 4, I'm going to stay consistent with the polls and say Clemson's number 4, even though Clemson did struggle last week.
Yeah.
The important thing to watch for is whoever wins the game between A&M and Alabama this week is going to be in the top 4, and whoever wins the game on November the 26th between Michigan and Ohio State is going to be in. Yeah. So you've got either A&M or Alabama. You've got Ohio State or Michigan in there. Those are 2 locks in that game. And then I think Clemson and Washington might as well be locks because somebody else is going to lose. 2 teams are going to lose.
No, I agree with you. My top 4 is the same. I can't think of an argument why Washington should be in there above Clemson right now, other than the fact that Washington has dominated all of their opponents except for Arizona, and Clemson just has not. Clemson's looked rough multiple weeks. I think at the end of the year, if I had to pick one, Washington or Clemson, that I think would give me a better shot at potentially winning a national championship, I would pick Washington, but that's really neither here nor there. But I do agree with you. I actually think even if A&M beats Alabama at home, or A&M on the road this week, I think Alabama doesn't drop out of the top 4. I think, honestly, Clemson would slide out of the top 4, and Bama might move down to 3 or 4. But I agree. I think honestly, Michigan, Ohio State, that knocks one of the teams out of playoff contention.
I mean, it's exciting, but
so you see,
teams is gonna, unless it's close, like we said this week, because the winner of that game is going to play in Indianapolis.
Right.
The other one's probably not going to drop below 5.
Right.
I mean, we've got a chance to see both Michigan and Ohio State in the playoff, and A&M and Alabama, Clemson and Washington. I mean, we're halfway through this year, and it's just
So you're seeing how there is
awesome.
a legitimate case for A&M to potentially be in a playoff scenario, and it's exciting for sure.
What about your Heisman race? Who do you have there? Lamar Jackson is just running away.
You can't really make a case that right now the trophy isn't Lamar Jackson's. I mean, just statistically,
it's his to lose.
Exactly. Statistically, you can't take it away from him at this point. He would have to be
20%.
Yeah, he would have to be outplayed at a ridiculous clip
or get hurt.
Exactly. Something would have to happen to his game to not give him the Heisman Trophy at the end of the year. I'm sure you'll hear other opinions. It will not be a unanimous decision because it never is for some reason, even though you get top-tier athletes that are definite picks. But at this point, I can't even begin to argue against Lamar Jackson.
I'm going to go ahead and make a bold statement. Whoever wins this week, it's between the two quarterbacks, obviously. Mm-hmm. Between A&M and Alabama, Jalen Hurts and Trevor Knight. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I said those out of order. Trevor Knight's the Aggie. Whoever wins this game is going to have a serious Heisman campaign starting after this game.
Sure.
And I think, my top three after this week will be in this order. Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Jalen Hurts, or Trevor Knight, whoever wins the game. Sure. I think those are going to be your three Heisman finalists.
Sure.
And I think, like we said, it's Lamar Jackson's to lose.
Yeah.
All right. And as we're going to go ahead and start wrapping it up, and Mitch, you and I love the game of baseball, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask you, how do you feel right now? Do you enjoy October?
Every year, sure. I love watching playoff baseball, whether my team's in it or not. It definitely stings.
Is your team not in it?
My team's not in it. The Rangers laid an egg against the Blue Jays, but it's okay because Tyler Naquin and the Cleveland Indians, although they did lose last night,
they're going to win today.
Are going to win today. They're going to knock the Blue Jays out, and I think your Dodgers have a pretty solid chance at knocking off the Cubbies.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
You're 19?
Almost 20.
You're almost 20. So you're not 20. Because we're starting a 20-year-old tonight.
Yeah. Gotta love the postseason.
It's great. October's great. College football gets, we get to arguing who's in the top four, and we get to watch postseason baseball. Like I said on my show last week, hockey's back. Basketball comes back next week. Oh, it's just a great time to be a sports fan. October's the best.
It really is.
All right. With that said, I think that just about wraps it up for us. How long have we been talking?
32 minutes.
Wow, it seems like we should have been talking for longer.
You
want to just let it roll for a few minutes? Or do you need to get back to cleaning?
He comes in a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
All right.
Obviously. We're going to wrap it up anyways, Mitch. Don't worry. I'm just messing with you. All right. For us here at the It's About Us podcast, my partner here, Mitch Mason. I had a brain fart. And I'm Richard Zane. We'll go ahead and see you next week. Giga Maggies and beat the hell out of Alabama.